Oh hey, I didn't see you there. I wanted to do something different for this week. I will still do challenge runs and crank up the difficulty with each run, but we're trying something different for now. Souls games have an amazing replayability for so many different reasons. It doesn't spoon feed you with unending cutscenes like a PlayStation exclusive, and you don't need to follow a pattern step by step in order to complete a game. But the most important reason why I always come back to these games and complete them again for the millionth time is the build variety. So different builds and weapon armor combinations were my fuel for all this time. I should warn you though, this is not a build video and I'm not going to show you the most broken weapons in each game. I will simply show you what I enjoy the most. But for now, let's get started. Elden Ring is a great game with so many great weapons. I was already overwhelmed while picking my favorites. This was really hard. I mean, Elden Ring has so many great weapons, but I don't feel like there's a weapon I enjoyed as much as I did with some of the Dark Souls 3 weapons. But anyways, let's start with a katana. I swear I'm not a weep, but this thing is just so much fun to use in PvE. Dragon Scale Blade. This is one of the most underrated katanas in the game in my opinion. Surely it was never broken like Rivers of Blood or Moonveil, but it is still an amazing weapon. It has B scaling on dexterity, which is the best you will get for a katana. It has an Ash of War I enjoy a lot. It isn't something edgy and overpowered like Rivers of Blood. Also, it isn't as fast and versatile like Moonveil, but I like it simply because it looks amazing. When triggered the Ash of War, you start with a stomp which staggers regular enemies, then it deals a devastating blow to your enemy. Right after that, a lightning strike follows up and deals even more damage. This attack leaves a buff on your weapon, which increases your damage and adds a frost build up to your weapon. As I said, it is not the most powerful katana in the game, and it is not even close to be one, but if you enjoy the lightning effect in this game like I do, it is an amazing weapon. Dragon Scale Blade is something I simply use for the look rather than the damage, and I simply can't get enough of that blue lightning effect. One thing I like as much as lightning in this game is Madness. Because of this, I picked Vike's War Spear as my second weapon. Madness is amazing in PvP battles, but I hate how little it comes to use in PvE. It is completely useless against majority of the bosses in the game. I'm not the biggest fan of Great Spear moveset, but the Ash of War is the main reason why I love this weapon. Though I must say, when I use this weapon, I make sure to also use Madness incantations like Flame of Frenzy to complement this build. Otherwise, just with this spear alone, build always feels incomplete. And the last one is Blasphemous Blade. It is the weapon I used to finish my first playthrough. It is a great sword, so it already has an amazing moveset for PvE. Now, this weapon is the easy mode of Elden Ring. If you ask for a casual weapon to easily complete the game, this weapon is probably the best choice. It has one of the strongest Ashes of War in the game. It sends a fire blast in a straight line, which deals massive damage. It is sharing pretty much the same Ash of War with the Ruin's Greatsword, just a different visual effect. However, Blasphemous Blade also comes with a lot of life-stealing effects. Any enemy you hit with the Ash of War restores a good chunk of your health bar, and killing an enemy also restores the health points even further. And you restore the health even if you don't use the weapon itself and you're just keeping it on your other hand as a decoration, I don't know. You will still get the healing as long as you hold the weapon on one of your hands. So it is a great option for some casual play, and it does so much damage, it heals you, it looks interesting, so I don't know, give this weapon a try. It is definitely an amazing choice if you want to make your game easier. As I said earlier, Elden Ring has so many fun and great weapons, but so far I haven't found a weapon that I absolutely love. I use pretty much everything, but so far my go-to weapon is still Claymore in Elden Ring, so I have really high hopes for the upcoming expansion Shadow of the Earth 3, and I'm 100% sure it will have both the most broken weapons and the most fun weapons in the game, just like the DLC's Dark Souls 3 had. Dual-wielding coated swords with a pure fate build is always a great option. Morgoth's Curse Sword. Of course you can take an entire gang squad with your Ash of War, cause why not? Iron Ball. Let's all pretend this thing is not broken so they don't nerf it. Envoy's Longhorn. It is all fun and games until your summon one-shots the boss with bubbles. Bolt of Gransex. If you want to become a tactical sniper, here you go, just spam the Ash of War. Dragon King's Crackblade. You will miss it half of the time, but it is still the coolest Ash of War in the game. Next on the list is Dark Souls 3. Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 were the breakpoints for From Software in terms of weapon design. Dark Souls 2 had so many weapons, but just like the bosses, majority of them were not memorable. Dark Souls 3 has so many iconic weapons. There are so many weapons I love in this game, I had to remove some from the list, so this section is not 50% of the video by itself. First weapon I want to talk about is Yorm's Great Machete. This is the weapon I used to finish my first ever playthrough in Dark Souls 3. I went on and finished the game 2 more times with the same character without changing the weapon, simply because of how much I was enjoying the moveset and everything about this weapon. Then I went on and spent almost 100 hours on PvP with this weapon. Yorm's Great Machete used to have 2-hit combo in PvP, but I think it's not the case anymore. I think they nerfed it. I haven't played Dark Souls 3's PvP much since Elden Ring came out, but it used to be an absolute beast. Amazing strength scaling is one thing, attacks are also quite fast thanks to the Great Axe moveset. And when wielding this weapon with one hand, you get so much extra distance that this weapon was simply broken. So there you go, amazing weapon design on top of a great moveset and incredible scaling. When you use the weapon art, you get a new moveset for your heavy attacks. In PvP it is not great, anyone will move out of your attacks, but against bosses this heavy attack is simply amazing. Next weapon I want to talk about is Onyx Blade. There's a similar weapon in Elden Ring called Godslayer's Greatsword. They simply have the same weapon art. Godslayer Greatsword has a follow-up attack that comes right after you do the first one, but Godslayer never felt as good as this one for me. This was the first weapon I used on my pyromancy build, and across all the Souls games, Onyx Blade is still my favorite pyromancy weapon. It has the regular greatsword moveset, so it is a big win for me, but also it has one of the coolest weapon arts in the entire game. It doesn't do much, but just the visual and the animation looks amazing for me. Not only you buff your sword with a swing, but it also deals a lot of damage in addition to the poise damage. Using this weapon art offensively in PvP opens so much room for some crazy 3-hit combos. It is another weapon with amazing design and great versatility. I can't do a strength fate build in Dark Souls 3 without this next weapon, Crucifix of the Mad King. I'm sure many PvP players are still having nightmares about this weapon, even to this day. I almost exclusively used it in PvP since I don't enjoy the halberd moveset as much in this game compared to Dark Souls 1, but this thing was still so much fun. It is one of the most unique weapons in the entire game, and it has so many different attacks. So you have the regular halberd light attacks, but then when it comes to heavies, this thing comes with Great Hammer moveset. Great Hammer heavies already cover so much distance, and now imagine them with a weapon with the length of a halberd. It just covers way too much distance. It is so easy and satisfying to roll catch people with the heavy attack. It is already one of the hardest hitting weapons in the game, but trust me, it gets even better. Things become really interesting when you use the weapon art. When you use it, you smack the halberd and you simply prepare your weapon for the follow-up attack, but if you keep spamming this button, you will constantly hit the ground. It doesn't have a lot of range, but when you follow this animation, you gain so much poise that you can just trade hits with your enemy and you will probably win the fight because this weapon just does too much damage. Also, weapon art has a follow-up attack to complete the combo. Follow-ups come with 3 different attacks. First one is the Roar. If you trigger this one, it deals a massive AoE damage to everybody around you, and this combo pretty much destroys anyone with a non-tank build. Second one gives you Poise. It is not the greatest of the 3, but it is a decent option that allows you to trade hits, and I think it gives you a bit of resistance, so it is not terrible, but it is also not great. And the last attack is the trickiest to pull off. It summons a living bomb that follows you around and then explodes violently. It does so much damage to anyone around the explosion, including the caster, so while using this weapon you have to get used to the timer of that explosion, otherwise you will just end up taking yourself down with the explosion. Valorheart. It is extremely annoying to fight against, but it is a unique, fun weapon to use in PvP. Gale's Greatsword. It can pretty much destroy anyone with 3-hit combo it has. Freight Blade for those who want to become the enemy. In Dark Souls 3 there are so many weapons. You have the regular historically accurate weapons that also existed in Dark Souls 1, but there are also so many weapons with impractical but interesting design. I have a couple favorites in this game, so let's get started. I will get the obvious out of the way, Sentius Spear. In Dark Souls 2, FromSoft was still experimenting with the weapon durabilities, and as a result, in this game breaking weapon is so much easier than any other Souls game, unless you go for the weapon skills in Dark Souls 1. However, unlike other weapons, When you break Sentia's spear, you turn it into a twin blade, which has infinite durability. In the past, this was one of the most broken weapons in the entire game. It eventually got nerfed, but even to this day, it is still a viable option. Damage output is really high. I mainly like this weapon because of how powerful it is, but also this was one of my favorite weapons in the Dark Souls 2, only because twin blades don't exist in Dark Souls 1 and 3, so this was a weapon type unique to Dark Souls 2 until Elden Ring came out. Another weapon I really enjoy in this game is Puzzling Stone Sword. I don't use straight swords often, but this was a weapon I enjoyed a lot during my playthrough. This one is more like a combination of two weapon types. It can be both a straight sword and a whip. Now the weapon is quite unique, but it is lacking the damage. Not the worst straight sword, but it is also far from being the best one. I don't use it to take down strong enemies or bosses, but it is an amazing tool while exploring the world. Thanks to this weapon's unique moveset, I never got overwhelmed, no matter how many enemies were around me. Whip attack has a huge cleave and also a great range, so even if a big group of enemies attack me, I could still clear them without even sweating. Once combined with a stone ring, this weapon becomes an absolute beast against most enemies. Breaking their posture with whip attacks becomes so easy. As I said, it's not a broken weapon or anything that will shine with its damage, but it offers a way out of any situation you find yourself in. There aren't many weapons in this game that I go crazy about. Having the most iconic locations in the series, it doesn't hold a lot of iconic weapons. I made countless builds in this game, but there's only one weapon that sticks out when I think of Dark Souls 1. It is the Black Knight Halberd. Now, why do I always come back to this one? It is a weapon you can get right at the beginning of the game when you land in Firelink Shrine. It requires a bit of map knowledge, but it is quite easy to get. You have to go to a certain place, take down the Black Knight there, and it has a chance to drop the halberd. Now, when people think of powerful weapons for early game, the first option that comes to mind is always Drake's Sword, but I think this weapon is just superior in every way. It has higher required stats, but once you can wield it, it is just much better than Drake's Sword. Usually I don't enjoy the halberd moveset, but for some reason with this weapon every attack is so satisfying. And the best thing about this weapon is the hidden bonus you have against demons. Just like all the other Black Knight weapons, this one also comes with 20% more damage against demons. It is definitely not the strongest weapon in the game, and it has some of the worst scalings in the game with D scaling in strength and E scaling in dexterity, but base damage is so high that you will still do incredible damage even if you don't invest in offensive stats, which you shouldn't because scaling is so bad. This is one weapon that never let me down in Dark Souls 1 and I always find it fun to use. Okay, about Bloodborne and Demon Souls, well, I will have a detailed approach when they are finally released on PC, if that ever happens. It has been so long since I played Demon Souls on PS3, but my favorite weapon was Dragonbone Smasher, which basically turned the easy mode of the game for me because of how broken it was. And for Bloodborne, I simply can't tell since I haven't played the game, and I'm still waiting for a PC port, but it is probably going to be one of these two. Well, anyways guys, these were my favorite weapons throughout all the Souls games that I have played and finished so many times in the past. Let me know in the comments below what weapons you like the most in each game. We don't shame anyone's builds here, no matter how unholy it is. I read and reply to all the comments since I only get a dozen of them anyway, so do share your opinions. Also, if you enjoy Souls content, consider giving a like and subscribe. This is all for now, I will see you on the next video, bye.